For those of us who were educated in this country, the majority of us would likely have attended what is known in education as a monastic secondary school. In simple terms, this is a high school that is single-sex. I am the product of a single-sex high school, and I'd like to believe that that school contributed significantly toward me becoming a functioning adult in society. Because it is human nature to gravitate back to the known, many parents instinctively feel that single-sex high schools are the route to go when it comes to the time to choose a high school for their own children. Many of us had successful, if not partially successful, high school careers, and so we default to that route being the correct one for our children. I have taught in both single-sex and co-educational high schools, and I believe that the co-educational environment provides the preferable one for a 21st century young adult. And I thank you for indulging me for approximately 15 minutes while I take you through some of the research I have done, as well as my own experiences in co-education. What should a high school provide? As parents, I think the main things we are looking for in a high school education can actually be summed up in 2 points. The first is that we want our children to come out the other end with an excellent education. It goes without saying that the high school should be an institution of excellence. The second factor is a little less tangible, but can be summed up as the fact that you actually want the high school that you choose to prepare your child for life. So you want your child to leave at the end of matric as a well-adjusted, well-balanced, happy and functional young adult. I'd like to start by reassuring you that the education your child would receive in a co-ed school would be at least equivalent to that of a monastic school. A lot of research was done on co-ed versus single-sex schooling in the 1980s in Australia and the UK. And this research led us to believe, in a nutshell, that boys are better off in a co-ed school where their natural competitiveness leads them to outcompete the girls, and that girls are better off in single-sex schools where they can be free to excel without feeling intimidated by the boys. This research has since been disproven. You can imagine how difficult it is to do valid scientific research on a subject like this, where it's practically impossible to remove gender from all the other factors that differentiate one school from another. And in this particular research, what they did was they looked at single-sex girls-only schools, which were very exclusive and where the girls had to write and pass well an entrance test in order to be accepted. And they compared these very exclusive schools against co-educational schools which were state institutions and open to everyone. Obviously, the results of such research cannot be considered valid. It cannot be denied that some very successful schools are single-sex schools, particularly in our own province, KZN. But it would be a big leap of faith to say that these schools are successful because they are single-sex. Single-sex schooling enjoys a long and honourable tradition in KZN, but it remains a legacy of a time when men and women enjoyed vastly different rights and expectations. Nowadays, it is expected, and rightly so, that both sexes be afforded equal opportunities. It is also untrue that both sexes are put off subjects that they are good at or might enjoy because these subjects are perceived as being geared toward the opposite sex. I've included some statistics from Reddam uMhlanga to show you how students do not choose subjects because of their genders. I'm not sure whether you're aware, but toward the end of grade 9, students choose subjects for their grade 10, 11 and 12 years. And if you have a look at the statistics on the screen, you will see the subjects physical science, core mathematics, advanced program mathematics, and EGD. These subjects are generally considered, if we look at the traditional way of thinking, these subjects are considered to be male-friendly subjects. And if this were indeed the case, you would be seeing a far higher percentage of boys taking these subjects than girls. And you will see that almost in every case, the split is close to 50-50. I'd just like to take a moment to speak a little bit more about EGD, because this is a subject that a lot of parents of grade 7 students are not aware about, because generally it's a subject that's not offered at the prep school level. Back in our day, forgive me for thinking that you're the same age as me, but back in our day we used to call this subject TD, technical drawing, and it was very much a subject that was offered often to students who battled academically, as it was a more technical subject, and certainly a subject offered generally only to boys. Please have a look at the statistics and notice how popular this subject is amongst both girls and boys. It's no longer a subject where students merely draw. It gives them very, very relevant skills if students are planning on going into a field such as architecture or even engineering. And it's a subject that has become particularly popular with girls and becoming more so each year. Why I'm singling out EGD is that it's a subject that is generally not offered at girls-only schools. And so parents, if you feel, and I know it's hard to know with your child only being approximately 12 or 13 years old, but if you feel that this is a field your child might consider later on, then it would be very important for you to choose a school where this subject is actually on offer. In terms of success in the various academic subjects, here is a photograph of our top 6 achievers from the class of 2019. You might be wondering why 2019 and not 2020, but as I stand making this presentation for you, we wait in eager anticipation for our 2020 matric results, so I'm unable to share those just yet. The following students achieved the top 3 places in grade 8, grade 9, grade 10 and grade 11 in the year 2020. The current thinking is that it's the quality of the school that matters. There are good and bad schools, some of them co-ed and some of them monastic. There is also no such thing as boys learning in a particular way and girls learning in a particular way, as some single-sex schools would have you believe. The notion of fundamentally female and male brains or natures is a misconception. So says Daphne Joel, renowned neuroscientist at the Tel Aviv University, and more scientists and psychologists are starting to agree with her. Previously, there was the notion of a male brain, a brain which thought in a compartmental manner and which was analytical and logical, and a female brain that was better suited to feelings and emotions and language and which processes information more holistically. The current science says that the brain is not a gendered organ, but that rather it is intersex, meaning that each of us possesses a brain that is a mosaic of male-like and female-like patterns of thinking. In short, there is no such thing as a male brain or a female brain. Rather, what exists is an individual brain. And so if this is the case, surely education should be geared toward the individual rather than toward a particular gender. And this is the cornerstone of the Reddam House uMhlanga approach. We believe that each student entrusted to us is an individual with a unique personality and a unique learning style. And what we strive to do as teachers is to carve or forge out good relationships with our students so that we are able to connect with them and accommodate every student in our classroom, on our sports fields, and in cultural activities. So, does it ever make sense to separate the sexes? You might be surprised at my answer because it's actually a yes. But when we separate them, it should be based on physical, anatomical aspects of their bodies and not on stereotypical pseudoscience regarding the brain. In other words, we believe that it's in our students' best interests to keep them together in the classroom, to keep them together in cultural activities, as they will be in life, but to separate them on the sports field, as is the case in most sporting codes in life. And so we have boys' teams and girls' teams that compete separately in the various sporting codes. In this way, camaraderie and competitiveness can be developed, but at the same time, we can compete fiercely against strong co-ed and strong monastic schools. This brings me to my second criterion. You'll recall that I said that there were two criteria that the high school of your choice should fulfill. Number one, it should be an excellent academic institution, and number two, it should produce a child who is ready to face life in the bigger world. So if the actual educational journey that your child will experience in a co-ed school is at least equivalent to that of a monastic school, we need to turn our attention now to that second criterion. Does the school you have selected have the capacity to produce a child who is well-adjusted, well-functioning, who will be happy in the adult world? And this is where I strongly believe that co-education has the advantage. I believe that a co-educational environment really does prepare your child better for life. And the reason why I say this is because a co-ed school mimics the situation in life. It provides for your child a natural, healthy, and normal environment. An environment where interactions, discussions, conversations can take place between people with possibly vastly different viewpoints, and where mutual respect can be learned, where teenagers can overcome their intimidation of and fear for the opposite gender. I do believe that in the society we currently live in, mutual respect is probably one of the most important qualities that we need to engender in our students. And a co-ed environment provides 5 years of being able to practice the skills that will be so vital when they enter the world outside school. I would also argue that a co-ed environment is a more socially relaxed environment. It's an environment with less tension, and one where your child is far more likely to find their tribe. By tribe, I mean like-minded peers who will enjoy being in your child's company. And let's face it, once a teenager feels that they fit in and that they are accepted and they are liked, that is when they start to thrive. That's when you start to see self-confidence growing and self-esteem developing. And I believe that the co-ed environment is an environment that is very good at producing the conditions necessary for that. If you speak to students in a co-ed school, they will tell you, and this is a fact, that there is less bullying, there is less criticism, there is less judgment, and there is less victimization in a co-ed school.
I'm more prepared for the real world and have a good footing into what the actual world entails.
Definitely, because at Reddam you form relationships with all genders, and that gives you experience for after school and like the working environment.
I definitely feel better prepared.
Having interactions with both girls and guys also helps build one's confidence, which is something I used to struggle with a lot.
I feel much better prepared for life after school, as I'll be able to interact with both sexes equally and be able to work better in a business environment that includes both genders.
Definitely, because here you get to have more experiences, and obviously in the outside world you're not just going to be with girls in a business or in university.
Being able to interact with people post high school as well, get rid of that social awkwardness, which also really is beneficial.
Yes, I think I am more prepared for life after school, because after school you're with a whole bunch of different types of people.
There's definitely way more advantages of being at a co-ed school, because you interact with boys and girls, you get a good feeling of what the real world is after school, and it just helps you build relationships with more people.
At this school they definitely value culture a lot more than some of the single-sex schools, because usually in single-sex schools it's more sport, whereas over here it's sport, it's culture, it's academics, it's everything, and I think it's really added to that.
I have experiences in both a boys-only school and a co-ed school. I feel that both schools have their advantages. However, I do believe that co-ed schools' advantages outweigh that of an all-boys school.
So, let's talk about the elephant in the room, relationships in a co-ed school. The reason that parents sometimes give for selecting a single-sex school above a co-ed school is that they are concerned that their children will become distracted by members of the opposite gender. They worry that the sole focus will be on finding a girlfriend or finding a boyfriend, and that minimum learning will happen as a result of this. I would like to reassure you that exactly the opposite happens in a co-ed school. Because it is a natural and normal environment that reflects society, more often than not, the relationships that happen in a co-ed school are either friendship relationships or relationships where the one gender or sex perceives the opposite to be more like an annoying sibling than an object of possible romantic interest. Anecdotal evidence suggests that boys and girls in co-ed settings have a more balanced attitude and view of relationships.
I feel that most relationships are seen as more friendly than anything.
I feel like the vast majority of relationships between sexes at Reddam are more friendly friendships and banter.
I think there are definitely more friendships between the opposite genders more than there is romantic relationships.
I wouldn't see every single guy in my school as a potential for a relationship.
I look at them more as friendships than romantic relationships.
Sometimes there is romantic relationships, but this doesn't affect your schoolwork or your sporting performance.
Relationships are paramount at this school. Relationships amongst students and relationships between students and their teachers. No real learning or growth can take place in an environment where a teenager doesn't feel comfortable and accepted. And if you ask any of our students, they will tell you that they actually like their teachers and that they have found their tribe. To facilitate these positive relationships, we have developed what we call a tutor group system. A tutor group is a small family group consisting of approximately 12 to 14 students, all in the same house, but spanning the grades. So there are a couple of students from grade 8, from grade 9, 10, 11 and 12, all in the same little family group. The idea is that the groups remain constant throughout the student's high school career, with new little grade 8 siblings arriving in the family at the beginning of their high school career, and matrics, older siblings, obviously leaving at the end of their matric year. The primary function of the tutor groups is to provide opportunities for students to connect with other students in different grades in a safe and nurturing environment, where conversations can be held under the guidance of a teacher and various issues can be addressed. These might be issues in greater society or issues within the school group, within the school environment itself. The tutor group system aims to reinforce the fact that at this school we do not believe that older students should ever hold undue authority over younger students, and that there should never ever be a situation where a younger student feels fearful of an older student. To sum up what I've said, the notion that males prefer a competitive learning environment and that females work better in an environment where there is cooperation is simply not true. These are outdated stereotypes. It is not true that all boys learn in a particular way and that all girls learn in a particular way. What students require is quality teaching practice. It is the quality of the teacher in the classroom that is the greatest determinant of success of the student. Individuals have particular learning styles, not genders. The Reddam approach is to meet the needs of the individual and not to gear its education toward a particular gender. A good school is one that enables all students to thrive, and a good teacher is one who prepares his or her lessons in such a way that they are engaging and interesting and challenging to every student in the class. The key is good relationships and good rapport. Life is co-ed, and a good school will prepare your child for life.